A new movie about one of the most iconic TV shows is hitting theaters soon. And oh yeah, one more thing. Pre-recorded from the spare bedroom of my house, it's my review of Saturday Night. This video is brought to you by Chubbies. Go to chubbyshorts.com and use promo code DAN20 for a special offer, and stay tuned after the video for more info. Hello, I'm Dan Murrell, and you're not. And this is my review of Saturday Night, the origin story of Saturday Night Live, from director Jason Reitman, who co-wrote the screenplay with Gil Kenan, and I did do research on that and found Jason Reitman himself saying Gil Kenan. Saturday Night takes place on October 11th, 1975, and the 90 minutes leading up to the first broadcast of what was then known as NBC's Saturday Night, but which would become Saturday Night Live in 1977. The movie takes place in real time as the clock ticks down to the show's premiere at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time, when it has to go live, not because, as creator and producer Lorne Michaels says, the show is ready, but because it's 11:30. And full disclosure, I've been a Saturday Night Live nerd since I was a kid. I had the SNL First 20 Years book when I was in middle school. I owned the 25th anniversary special on DVD. I've read Live from New York, The History of Saturday Night Live, a few different times, and I still think that's a great book. And I still keep up with the show as well from time to time, though not as much as I used to. It's been such an obsession that when I got my first Mac with Final Cut Pro on it, the very first project I did was to assemble my own Best of Saturday Night Live compilation tape from episodes that I taped off of Comedy Central. This is a show that I've watched for nearly my entire life. I revere the show, and this was the movie I think that was at the top of my most anticipated movie list for this fall. I didn't really expect to learn anything new, but I was excited to see the birth of the show through this lens. And I have to say that while Saturday Night has an exceptional cast and some great moments, I think that there's one critical error in the building of this film and the structure of it that left me somewhat underwhelmed. And that critical error to me is the movie's real-time format. While the race against the clock adds tension to the movie as it goes on, it also forces the movie to do everything it wants to do in one compressed time frame. And that includes establishing all of the SNL cast and the writers, establishing what the conflict was between Lorne Michaels and the network, the conflicts between Lorne Michaels and the crew, the practicality of doing a live show like this for the first time, as well as the reason why Lorne Michaels wanted to do this show in the first place. And then you have all of the resolutions of the conflicts between the different characters. This would be a very difficult thing for a movie with a regular format to fit inside 90 minutes, and it becomes even more impossible, I think, to do it all in a satisfying way when you put it inside this real-time format. Now, of course, nearly every movie that's based on true events has to play fast and loose sometimes with the sequence of events or when certain things happen, but the conceit of this movie is that every major problem with the development of the show and the execution of the show happens all at the same time on the same night as we follow Lorne Michaels running around Studio 8H and Rockefeller Center trying to solve everything. At times that's exciting, but more often it felt contrived and stretched believability for me. Drama with host George Carlin on the night of the premiere, that's believable. Lorne Michaels naming Chevy Chase the host of Weekend Update 10 minutes before the show airs, that's less believable. Hiring writer Alan Zweibel in a bar next door 5 minutes before the show airs so that he can write jokes in real time, now I think you're really pushing it. It's strange because I think that people who don't already know Saturday Night Live won't really be able to develop any sort of knowledge or appreciation for who a lot of the people in the movie are, and the people who do know Saturday Night Live may find themselves really frustrated by the fact that it glosses over so much about the show that's important, and especially the people that are important in the development and the history of the show beyond just Lorne Michaels. SNL nerds don't need an introduction to Franken and Davis. They know who Michael O'Donoghue is and why he acts so crazy. It's not a mystery as to why Jim Henson is hanging around backstage stressing out about what the Muppets are going to say, but very little or none of that is really established in the movie itself, and I'm curious how this is going to be received by people who don't have an intimate knowledge into the early days of SNL. It feels like this movie was made almost exclusively for people who already know in deep detail how the show was launched, and that's a pretty small target to hit. Familiarity is also taken for granted when it comes to the original Saturday Night Live cast. If you don't know who John Belushi is walking in, you're not going to know very much more about him walking out, other than that he was very difficult to work with. The most development is given to the breakout star of SNL's early days, Chevy Chase, who I think is played brilliantly by Corey Michael Smith. Chevy Chase's ego and breakout potential is already on display, and I feel like even if you don't know Chevy Chase, you'd understand who he is by the end of the movie. Garrett Morris, who's played by Lamorne Morris, no relation, also gets some screen time as he begins to realize that he may not be on equal footing with his other co-stars. But a lot of the other cast members aren't really given a lot of consequence to do in the movie, and ironically, for a show in real life that's often been criticized for giving short shrift to some of its female cast members, the movie adaptation of Saturday Night Live replicates that mistake. For example, the comedic brilliance of Gilda Radner is barely acknowledged, Lorraine Newman fares even worse, and Jane Curtin gets basically one scene that doesn't really mean much if you don't already know who Jane Curtin is. With this cast, I think you could have told the story without the real-time format limiting its scope throughout, take more time to set up who these people are and why the show's so groundbreaking, why the network doesn't get it, what it is about the show that only Lorne Michaels was able to see. Then, if you've established all that, I think you could still do the last 45 minutes or so in the real-time format, but with the characters and plot lines and history that you have structured much better in the early part of the movie. I think you still could get that excitement, but it would be more satisfying because you actually understand who these people are and a little bit more what the stakes are, apart from, again, what's at stake just for Lorne Michaels. The movie doesn't even really deal with the fallout or the legacy of what you've just seen. It would be like if you were watching Avengers Endgame and the movie ended right as Captain America said, "Avengers Assemble," because the creators behind the movie said, well, they've read the comic books, they know that the Avengers win. No, I mean, yes, we do, but it's also nice to see that shown on screen. What saves this movie without a doubt is the cast, who turn in almost universally exceptional performances. It's not easy to step into the shoes of the very first not ready for primetime players and be believable as characters instead of impressions, but these actors pull it off. Corey Michael Smith's Chevy Chase is fantastic, as is Lamorne Morris's Garrett Morris, and I mentioned both of them earlier. What little screen time Ella Hunt gets as Gilda Radner is able to bottle at least the effervescence that made America fall in love with her. Dylan O'Brien blew me away as Dan Aykroyd, SNL's resident expert in all things eccentric and a motor-mouthed flirt. He was really an embodiment of early Dan Aykroyd. And the movie's carried by Gabriel LaBelle as Lorne Michaels. I was impressed by his breakout role in The Fabelmans, and I'm even more impressed with his performance here. LaBelle's ability to pick up Lorne Michaels' very distinctive way of speaking, if you've ever seen him in the past or even today, was really impressive, and he continues to impress me with his work in the last few years. I look forward to what he's going to do in the next several years. If there was really a downfall when it comes to the Lorne Michaels character, it's that his somewhat unconventional marriage with Rosie Schuster, who was also a key figure in the early years of SNL, was really underserved. Rosie Schuster's played in the movie by Rachel Sennott, but that is yet another consequence of the script being structured the way that it is. It just feels like some things are jammed in there when there's really not room for them. The rest of the cast gives standout performances, including Jon Batiste, Willem Dafoe, Cooper Hoffman, J.K. Simmons as a very salty Milton Berle, Nicholas Braun as both Jim Henson and Andy Kaufman, Matthew Rhys with a fantastic distillation of George Carlin's anti-establishment roots, and Nicholas Podany, who's an actor I don't really know anything about, as Billy Crystal in an uncanny channeling of his 70s comedic energy. The only performance I wasn't really on board with was Matt Wood as John Belushi, who's more caricature than character, but that's mainly a failing of the script, not the actor, and his resemblance to Belushi physically can't be denied. As an SNL fan, I loved a lot of what this movie was doing, but as a movie fan and a movie critic, I was consistently frustrated by the fact that they tried to jam so much in here that they don't really get down below the surface of anything. This was, for me, really more of an impressive recreation of the early days of SNL than a compelling movie, but early audiences, especially at the festivals, seem to have been on board. A lot of critics are on board. I heard somebody in the screening that I attended saying very loudly after the credits rolled that they thought it was maybe the best movie of the year. So I may well be in the minority here. And the question that I have to examine is, am I just a little bit too close to the subject matter? I don't think so, because I've enjoyed movies about things that I've loved before that don't necessarily incorporate every single thing about it. I am able to turn off that part of my brain and enjoy a movie on its own terms. But when this movie really fails to deliver, I do kind of have to fall back on the things that I do know, because I can see the potential of what this script could have been and what this movie could have been. And maybe Jason Reitman is having the last laugh here. Maybe he's made the most meta movie about Saturday Night Live that you could possibly make, in that it resembles what the show has largely proved over the years, which is that the greatness sticks with you and the mediocrity fades from memory over time. So on my personal rating scale, I'm giving Saturday Night a rating of it's fine, with the caveat that there are some fantastic performances in this movie. And if you are a Saturday Night Live fan, I think it's probably worth it just to see how well they embody the spirit of this early cast. Saturday Night is in limited release right now. It's going to hit theaters nationwide next Friday, October 11th. What do you think? Are you going to head out to theaters to see it? Let me know down in the comments below. And before we go, I want to thank the sponsor for this video, Chubbies. It may be fall, but I'm still thinking back on the fun I had this summer, which included a trip to the beach and my first time wearing stuff from Chubbies. I had swim trunks that were super comfortable and looked good to boot, and I'm still using my Friday shirt on the days when the temperatures are still warm. But let's face it, summer is dead. And as the leaves start to fall and the temperatures drop, your wardrobe needs to catch up. Luckily, Chubbies is here to save the day. Yes, Chubbies is great for the summer, but they also have ultra cozy, comfortable clothes that'll keep you feeling warm and looking better as the mercury drops. From flannel-lined shirts to warm pullovers to cozy quarter zips, Chubbies has all the fall-ready threads for those night football games sitting in those cold, cold metal bleachers. Even if you're a year-round shorts wearer, and they do exist, pairing chubby shorts with a fall sweater or cozy jacket is the perfect complement to those weatherproof thighs. This fall, elevate your style, your confidence, and hey, who knows, maybe your entire fundamental being with Chubbies. And would you look at that? For a limited time, our friends at Chubbies are giving fans of the show 20% off with the promo code DAN20 at checkout at chubbyshorts.com. That's 20% off your order with the promo code DAN20. Support our show and tell them we sent you. This fall, make the most of every moment with Chubbies. Shop now and fall into comfort, one stylish piece at a time. Thanks to Chubbies for sponsoring this video, and thank you for watching. Be sure to stay tuned right here. I've got my spoiler review of Joker Folie à Deux tomorrow here on the channel. I think it's going to be a lot of very passionate discussion around that movie. And of course, going forward, I've got more movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.